The music of the 50s and the 60s still have us rocking and rolling this week.
Just ask our next guests who host their own radio shows which pay tribute to the oldies. Bob Pianka is the oldie man. His program Rock and Roll Revisited has been on the air 16 years on WLRN.
And Stu Goldstein, the keeper of the keys, and Philadelphia J. Holtzman, who have their own show on WVCG.
Right.
Welcome. Before we go any further, we have an Elvis sighting.
Where is
we have
he?
an Elvis sighting.
Where
right
is he?
There.
He's always there.
He's always is Elvis one of the reasons why we just keep harking back to that era?
Well,
one of the catalysts.
I don't know if he's really the reason. He's instrumental, I think, in the development of rock and roll. The reason, to my way of thinking, is that so many of us like to reach back, maybe because it was a simpler time and now we're in such complicated times. Maybe the music was better, which I think we would all claim.
It was more innocent.
Well, we call it, at least I do, I better not speak for these guys, I call the 50s the last innocent era, because along came the 60s with the do-your-own-thing era, and innocence was no more as we do it then.
But it's all relative, too, because what our parents thought was bad is what we may think is bad for the next generation of music, and it's all relative from year to year and generation to generation.
What is oldies, Philadelphia Jay?
Oldies...
I mean, if a record's 6 months old, is it old?
No.
Unfortunately.
But it is that way on the radio, though. Once a record is gone, it's out of sight.
Right. There's radio stations.
These keep coming back.
What happens is...
We feel from 52 to the beginning of the Beatle era is an oldie to us. Okay, which includes everything from early R&B, rhythm and blues, doo-wop, Jerry Lee Lewis, rockabilly, all the way through to the beginning of the Beatles' invasion.
Why does it keep coming back? Why does this music stay so popular?
Well, music moves in cycles, and that was doo-wop, the area that Jay was just talking about. Then you got into the British invasion in the 60s. Then you went into, later was acid rock, and then you went into disco in the 70s.
Yeah, but the oldies have stayed, they've stood the test of time. Why?
Disco's not coming back.
Nostalgia. It's nostalgia. You have a whole group of people in their 40s and 50s who lived in that time. Those people have younger siblings. Those people have children. Our kids grow up on oldies because we have to tell them, hey, you got to hear what it was like. The other thing that happens, too, you have movies like Stand By Me, American Graffiti on TV, Happy Days. Nostalgia is something that people do not want to let go. And I think one of our claims is that the 50s, and we sound like we just harp and harp and harp, but it was a very definable era, and it was the end of something. When the British hit town, it was as if somebody threw a switch.
What do you guys think of music today, Jay?
For the most part, I find it just awful.
What's so awful?
How I knew he was going to say
that.
Well,
first of all, it's very manufactured, okay? The drummer's not with a guitarist.
There were no Milli Vanillis back in the 50s and the 60s, is that what you're saying?
No, not really. Music today is so engineered and so, there's so much research done before a record's released, and, you know, it's like they know in advance that a record is going to be a hit, and it's manufactured, and it's just set up.
So the oldies is much more pure.
And another thing,
it was just those guys, that's it. There were 5 singers and the musicians, and they went into the studio and they recorded it all at once. There was no multi-tracking in the early 50s. That didn't come until the very late 50s.
They had a snare drum and a cymbal, and that was it.
We could talk with you guys forever, but we're going to actually listen to some music of the 50s, and so we thank you very much for being here and kind of setting the stage for that.
Bob Pianka, Stu Goldstein, Philadelphia J, thanks so much for joining us. And if you want to hear their oldie shows, Bob's Rock and Roll Revisited airs every Sunday night at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on WLRN FM 91.3.
Stu Goldstein and Philadelphia J are on the air every Friday night from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on WVCG 1088 AM, and their show also features call-ins.
And stay right here, because when we come back, more oldies, but this time the music is live from Jimmy Gallagher and the Passion.
The new Passions.
Right, the new Passions.
We'll be right back.